Here's an absolutely fascinating glimpse of Ian Hislop in full action. And he doesn't take prisoners here at all. Jake Berry, of course, Conservative MP, is a bit of a pillock. And he tries to have the last word. He tries to get a word in. Not a chance. Listen to how this starts.
Honour. She said in 2015 there was no evidence of miscarriages of justice. By 2017, 550 postmasters brought a case to the High Court, which was settled for £58 million, and in total they have paid out £138 million to 2,700 postmasters.
Thanks, Anushka. So, Ian, it's 12 years, maybe longer, since you and Private Eye started noticing what incredible incompetence there was within the post office.
Yeah,
but
I think
also
that's generous incompetence. I think it is sort of willful lying when they knew the truth.
And obviously, and miscarriages. Why do you think it has taken 12 years? What does it say about our system of governance and government that it's taken 12 years to get to a point where maybe there'll be comprehensive pardons, maybe there'll be proper restitution?
Well, I mean, the entire system, the judicial system and the supposed supervision in government preferred to believe the corporate bodies than listen to ordinary people. And the reason this drama was so good, and it really was good, people say to me, oh, God, I mean, so much for journalism. Actually, the journalism fed into the drama. The drama, according to one sub-postmistress today, she said two things tip this drama and the fact that there's an election. And the fact that politicians are wandering about now telling us how concerned they are and how deeply concerned they are. And at best they say, oh, it's all Ed Davies' fault. Really? One Lib Dem? Every single man in charge of the post office after that was a Conservative. Who was the Prime Minister when Paula Venables, the head of the post office, was given a CBE? It was a Conservative government. It was David Cameron. And he's still in the cabinet. 2019, giving this woman a CBE for services to the post office. Everybody involved knew that Horizon did not work. Now, Fujitsu, and I'm glad to see Alex Chalk getting serious here. I mean, we're talking perjury here. We're not talking incompetence. They stole the money from the sub-post mistresses. They stole their money and they put it back in the system. Now, that money has gone to fund post office bonuses and Fujitsu's profits. The government has continued to employ Fujitsu. What we need to do is say to Fujitsu now, we want compensation from you. How about £1 million per sub-postmaster or mistress? That amounts to £1 billion, which is nothing compared to what the taxpayer has paid out to Fujitsu. It is absolutely disgraceful, this. And I'm going to rant now because there isn't much time. The idea that people are saying, guilty people could make a lot of money. They've already made a lot of money.
You have got more time, because we are coming back to you in just a couple of minutes, so you have got more time. I should point out that there is a statutory inquiry going on.
Yes.
And I think we probably have to presume until we've got the verdict.
No, you've got the judge's verdict in the biggest miscarriage ever.
It is certainly the case.
Absolutely
it is
clear.
Certainly the case.
It's not interrupting you, Robert.
It is certainly the case. Having looked at the judgment, that there are huge questions to be asked about what Fujitsu disclosed and why they didn't disclose.
And there is no reason for any of your lawyers to have a heart attack.
We're not having a heart attack. We're not having a heart attack. We're not having a heart attack. Under no circumstances will I have a heart attack on air about something as interesting as this. Now, don't go away, because, believe it or not, Ian, in lively form, will be back, and so will Jess and Jake.
And now we have to take an ad break, which I think is probably necessary, while Ian gathers pace to come back. And Peston is trying to do his best to referee this debate. But frankly, Jake Berry, who all the way through the programme has been talking over everybody else and trying to do his sort of politicking, he doesn't... He gets rinsed by Hislop. Listen to how this continues.
Welcome back. Ian Hislop is still with me now. Whatever you think of Ian's passionate, should we say, criticism of Fujitsu and of the post office, I am told I have to read out this statement from Fujitsu. It says this: the current Post Office Horizon IT statutory inquiry is examining complex events stretching back over 20 years to understand who knew what, when, and what they did with that knowledge. The inquiry has reinforced the devastating impact on postmasters' lives and that of their families, and Fujitsu has apologised for its role in their suffering. Fujitsu is fully committed to supporting the inquiry in order to understand what happened and to learn from it. Out of respect for the inquiry process, it would be inappropriate, apparently, for Fujitsu to comment further. I wonder whether they'll comment after having had you.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's classic corporate nonsense, isn't it? It would be inappropriate. Of course it's not inappropriate. Comment now. But head of Fujitsu, what's your offer? How much money are we getting back? What? We're going to learn what happened. You knew what happened. The judge made it absolutely clear that this money was stolen.
We do need to move on, though, to another aspect.
Yes.
You pointed out that quite a lot of people, for their presumably party political reasons, have decided to have a go at Ed Davey. But how many reputations are going to be ruined by this, in your view?
Oh, loads. Right the way through, from the judge who refused to look at the original brilliant article in Computing Weekly and just said, no, this isn't right. I know the computer's right. I mean, it isn't that people think computers are always right. They were told by human beings who knew perfectly well that there was a blip in the system, that the system was working. It was robust. It was perfect. It wasn't. And this presumption of innocence was serious people who sit on boards and are in charge of things know what's right. Ordinary people, i.e. sub-postmasters and mistresses, must be lying. No matter how many people said, look, we know these people. They run our village. They are really good people. They weren't believed. And it took so long.
That is astonishing. How do you think... Because among the many issues that I find incredibly difficult to get my head round is how you can have an institution like the Post Office that knows that postmasters are sort of really valued members of their community and have been for decades and decades, how they can suddenly think that they've been invaded by a bunch of crooks. It's so weird.
I don't think they did think it. That's the problem. Is that they maybe thought it at the very, very early stages. You should, as a constituency MP, you'll get a case in and you'll think, oh, I'm not sure about that. And then you get 4 more that sound really similar and you start to think, this is getting to a critical mass.
There's an issue.
But they lied. There was no critical mass.
No, but
they told each one of them, this is really important, they told each one of the complainants, you are the only
one.
Yeah, exactly. That is straightforward fraud.
So I think the real thing, the point is, there was a mass cover-up by the Post Office, and as far as I can tell, to some extent, the civil service were complicit. And there was a mass cover-up. And I mean, actually, the real thing that we should be talking about is, I know Porter Vanels has given up her CBE. I'd like to give it back to her, because I want to see her stripped of her CBE, and I also want all of those bonuses that were given for high-performing post office managers
with your record on the honours system.
I mean, well, my record,
can we
I
have
don't have a record on the honours,
then?
but I would like to see those bonuses and performance-related pay stripped away. We did very.
I mean, you're certainly right, and I do think it's a fundamental issue, which again I'm slightly surprised isn't being debated more. Allegedly, this management, including Porter Reynolds, turned the business around. But we now know, because of the hundreds of millions being paid out, those weren't real profits.
No, they were incentivized.
This business was not turned round.
But like in the
From having a public service
we stripped bonuses,
in which they were operating in the public good, they were incentivized to make money for the post office. And that led to ignoring what was going on in the hope of getting better remuneration. And that's disgraceful. And all of them should have to pay those bonuses back.
100%.
But the problem we got in this country, and it's a serious problem, is no government has actually put in place any kind of system that actually enables clawback in these kind of circumstances. And in the end, you're sort of relying on the goodwill of people to hand back money. Well, when has that ever happened?
One thing we do control is their massive taxpayer-funded pensions. We do have control of that, and we can pass an emergency piece of legislation, a parliamentary pardon. Why can't we do the same thing with their pensions?
Well, why couldn't you do it so long ago?
It's extraordinary that Conservative MPs have today said that these investigators should be forced to repay their bonuses and their pensions into the compensation scheme to pay out to wronged branch managers. Senior Conservatives have demanded that Downing Street sets up some sort of clawback cash system. That's where Ian Hislop is at. That's what he's referencing when they talk about this clawback scheme. That's what they're talking about the people who've been convicted. And it's just looking at what's going on today. It's simply astonishing. This Stephen Bradshaw boy who forced a disabled postmistress to use a parcel lift to send her up and down like some sort of brown paper package, and it's contemptuous of basic humanity and basic care. And how could we possibly trust that our post is going to be delivered by people who run the post service with the thuggery that is on display at the moment? How can we possibly trust this? This post office system, the Post Office Limited, needs to be shut down, and an entirely new and demonstrably effective and functioning post office needs to be set up and re-established in its place. And ideally, we need to ensure that every village, every town is represented in that environment.
The fact that it takes an ITV drama and suddenly, having been told their entire campaigning lives, this is very difficult, you'll have to go in front of a judge, this is very, very expensive, oh, this morning it isn't, tomorrow we'll pass legislation and you're all exonerated. I mean, it is absolutely fatuous for this government to claim, hey, we're really acting now. Did nothing the whole time.
Sorry.
No, you're not sorry.
That is demonstrably, sorry, that is demonstrably complete and utter.
Why did you give her a CBE in 2019?
Why did you give anyone a CBE?
Why did you appoint her to the Cabinet Office? You talk over everyone else, and you've been doing it the entire programme. Ian, let him speak. Two wrongs don't make a right.
That programme, which you claim to love so much, and was an amazing piece of drama put together by ITV.
What, you're saying I don't claim to? Why am I claiming to love that programme? I did like that programme. You can't just talk nonsense and not be interrupted.
It's not nonsense. That programme ends in 2019 with that court case.
Yeah.
In the intervening period, with £130 million plus has been paid out.
You did say that earlier, Jake, and unfortunately,
and the government has said...
Go and ask. The programme's over. Now we've got the question. All right. I don't think we're going to have a chance to tell you what's coming next week. But anyway.
Now, don't you think this is wonderful? Ian Hislop is not even prepared to concede that the programme is finishing. He will not give way to the nonsense which is being peddled by Jake Berry. And the issue is very simple. The government has had 13-odd years. There's been 24 years since all this started. We knew about this in 2009 at the very latest. The government knew about this in 2009 at the very latest. I think they knew in 2003 when there was a clear report. And it's been a catalogue of cover-up. Why? Because the government judged that nobody would care or nobody would understand what was going on. But in the end, this has been a David and Goliath story. And David, of course, has won. That's what happens with David and Goliath stories. In the end, the wrongdoer, the people who are grabbing as much money as they can, who think that they have friends in high places, the wrongdoer is exposed. It takes time. It takes time. But this catalogue of not answering letters, of dismissing the victims, in the end, if the victims are persistent enough, in the end, if the people who are campaigning are persistent enough and specific enough, it may take years, but in the end, it works. I think the post office scandal is a wonderful example of tenacity, but it's also a wonderful example of the fact that right eventually wins out. It takes time. Certainly when I was dealing with the torture issue, it took over 11 years. I thought that was a long time. I'm now teaming up, I hope, with people in America to look at the whole business of reality TV, both in America and in the UK and elsewhere. I think there's serious problems. And yes, you get rebuffed, you get pushed down, you get pushed aside. But you crack on and you keep gnawing away at the same bone, because in the end, the people in UCAN know that they are right. I've had a similar experience. I think they're right. And I think the TV producers involved in making these cheap programs, and I think the government involved in sponsoring or turning a blind eye to the wrongs that are going on, are mistaken. More than that, I think if we put this right, we make better programs. The same thing with the post office. If the post office puts this right, it delivers a better service. But instead, we seem to have gotten into a position where people are so desperate to protect their own back and not be called out. We need to change the way we do things, because that's the way to get to the truth. Instead of constantly looking with a magnifying glass for the person responsible for causing the problem, yeah, there are people who are responsible for causing the problem, but a lot of the time they're the people that we pin the problem on. We should be looking to help the victims. We should be looking to make sure that there are no more victims. We should be looking to reform the situation. Instead, so much money is spent on saving the backs and the faces. They're interchangeable, aren't they? Of the people who've fouled up. So much money, so much effort, simply protecting the image. A PR person's dream. It brings in their money. The only people who get rich from this sort of stuff are PR people and lawyers.